nervous system generally are all going to have big effects on that. Like something, the camera's really cloudy. Okay. Stick that one over there.
Is that a new toy?
This is the same one I've been popping out. Got it for a little while. Line it up good. I've got an assistant that is getting transcripts off of it too. So you actually if you go into the YouTube channel stuff, it has the transcripts in it, and I think you can click in to just see all the written part now.
On a YouTube video? Anyone? Yeah.
Yeah. So she's setting it up.
If you do like Control N or something on just your keyboard, it'll show you, this is for any site, but it works for the YouTube transcripts. You can type in words and it will show you all the times that that word appears in the transcript.
Oh.
So you can go to a specific time code.
Well, that's cool.
Yeah, I learned that when I was playing D&D. And we would post them on YouTube. I was like, I need to find this moment.
Okay.
Where's my...
So getting back into the nervous system here. I'm so glad I gave us a whole day for the nervous system. And all of these things, we're hustling through these systems, but we'll circle back because we'll have like clinical case studies to review and stuff eventually too. So I want us to get our like big picture kind of locked in, but then we'll keep filling in more details, circling through with more like real world application kind of ideas as well as we get further along. Okay, so in between, Yuko had a question. We did send a little conversation about the how to get it to switch on purpose and this idea of the breath. And so we just kind of went through this idea of when we take this conscious decision override on the lungs, on the breath, on the diaphragm muscle that we have control over there, that's going to cascade into an effect on the heart rate, and then that's going to affect also the entire sympathetic system. A little bit this idea of like you can pick any part of what's going on in the sympathetic nervous system and choose to change it. The stronger the system is engaged, the harder it's going to be to like wrestle any one symptom, right? And so building up with lots of practice of how to get the different symptoms to switch at will is going to be cumulative. But that's why also it works for a lot of people in a lot of circumstances, not always every time. But that if people are in a really activated state to just start going into like the deep breaths, of course, but like envisioning something or doing a body scan and basically shifting the focal point, because so much of this is causing our cognitive focus to narrow down. But if we can open it back up into being aware of the space around us, being alert to the sensations inside of us, that's going to start dropping us down into the parasympathetic system as well.
Is that why like ASMR and meditation is so effective? Because it's kind of like activating your frontal brain, but it's also bringing up some sympathetic, or no, parasympathetic, because it's like
you
coaching
said
you to
ASMR.
breathe.
Are you meaning ASMR right now or EMDR?
No, I meant ASMR. I don't know what the other one.
Okay. I'll quickly cruise over this because they're useful terms to be familiar with, actually. So ASMR is a goal for us generally. It's the autonomic system meridian response. And that's just a way of describing basically like when you get like full body shivers, like that sensation of like a wave of energy just kind of rolling through the body is literally a wave of energy rolling through the body, and it's on a meridian pathway and it's just resetting. And so it's almost like I don't know, like you remember like defragging computers? Is that falls out familiar? It's a little bit like that. It's basically like just a system reset where everything has a chance to just kind of go off in a sequence. And so it creates organization in a scrambled system. Does that make sense? A little bit?
No, I don't know what defragging is. I never defragged a computer.
Okay. Well, that's okay. We don't do that anymore.
That's too old school.
Turn it off, unplug it for
Now-
60 seconds, and plug it back in.
Now it happens automatically when you're asleep on a timer.
That
When
would-
some developer hits a button.
Blockbuster times or something.
Right? Yes. No. Yep. Exactly.
Burning
Blockbuster
CDs.
times. Yes.
This sort of calls to mind a boss I had that was real frazzled a lot, especially
Okay.
in the morning when he hadn't smoked any weed yet.
Okay.
I would put on a certain radio
That's-
station on Pandora,
Oh.
and it would chill.
Reggae.
I knew
Yeah.
the right station to put on, the right kind of music to put on,
Uh-huh.
and it would just turn him around to normal again
Yeah.
in seconds.
You Pavloved him.
I Pavloved.
You trained
I
him.
did.
Yes. And that will always be a little bit of a weird question. And I find that like same reason that we end up with a lot of neurospicy in bodywork classes, we also end up with a lot of like what I kind of like to think of as just witches. I feel like that's the simplest, longest running term, but that when people arrive on this planet with a range, like, and I'm not saying anything about like spiritual beliefs or practices per se, but that when you have a ability to be aware of something that's not part of the like central automatic given information for all humans, but you have some neurospiciness, you have some extra fringe of data that you're able to pick up. Maybe you're a little more sensitive to electromagnetic resonances, or maybe you hear higher pitch frequencies. You end up knowing something that the people around you don't know. And it gives you power, right? That like depending on how well you learn how to access that information and make sense of it, it gives you power. And then once you have any kind of power, even very simple things like a few sound frequencies that are above and beyond that other people would not be able to pick up and notice, now you may be able to associate that with things that happen in the world and predict things that are going to happen before other people get any information of it. That's going to put you in a position of when do you share information? When do you try to use information that seems to be by nature given just to you? Versus when do you take it as like that's granted for all people? When should it influence other people's behavior, even though you're the one that got the information? There are many ethical dilemmas created by neurospicy witchiness.
Yeah.
Right.
You can always pull a Pavlov's box.
Exactly. And it puts us in a position of having to make decisions like that, of like, I could do things that would change how other people are going to experience their reality, and they may or may not at all be able to perceive that I did that I made a choice about their nervous system instead of just mine.
While
I
still,
have no advice.
while still giving them autonomy to like, maybe I wasn't what affected their choice.
Right,
there.
right. That we don't want to like overly take responsibility for things beyond what we need to. But
I guess the best
when we
example
do
is
have,
like children,
yes,
like raising children. Like you
yes,
clearly have the most influence over
Right.
their life. So it's
right.
like, then you do take responsibility for this one
Mhm.
with other people. But anyways, yeah.
Yeah.
I need to interrupt.
The other term that we'll grab really quick here is EMDR. I'm kind of spacing on what that stands for. But it's basically, like you'll hear it described as though like EMDR is a therapy unto itself, but I'm pretty sure that R is the same in both words. And so it's actually like a phenomenon that happens in the nervous system, but it's basically a bilateral coordination that when you have like the symmetrical sides of the body activated in a rhythmic way, that'll have a predictable set of effects on the nervous system as well. And so it'll provoke types of thinking that are associated with the states that the person is entering as that happens.
Like rocking the neck back and forward because that's a bilateral movement. Like, that what it
so
is?
in the like most cogent like research therapeutic intervention based on EMDR, it's going to be like a sensory experience that's happening alternatingly on both sides of the body, and it can be just a sound like a whoom, whoom, like in headphones, alternating ears.
Eye movement desensitization.
There you go. Eye movement.
Reprocess.
Oh yeah, okay, reprocessing.
I was very afraid of being on a ladder. I'm a painter, right?
Oh, okay, yeah.
I was
So you have
on
an
top of a
experience with
10 or
this.
12-foot ladder. I was having panic attacks.
Mhm.
It was a new thing. I went to EMDR therapy, just a couple of sessions, and I'm able now to climb my
Right.
ladder again.
Right, right.
Oh, is
And
that
so generating that, it turns out that, yeah, so it's got the name from the eye movement desensitization. It was discovered by a woman who was like really able to tune into her own system and the response that she was having, like taking walks of that as she was like swinging the eyes back and forth, getting that bilateral experience on her walks, that she was able to access kind of cognitive processing states that were more deliberate. But it turns out it is throughout like multiple sensory systems. People can do EMDR with their eyes closed, with headphones on, or like with vibrating things in their hands or whatever. But it's like making the brain alternate which side of the body is taking in information, kind of just help us like reorganize. So there's a few of those bigger things. There's not things that you'll be EMDR won't necessarily be trying to do in terms of like provoking processing of experiences in a specific way. ASMR is something that you'll be able to watch for over the course of, I don't know, you might do specialized trainings to really be alert to it, but you'll probably just begin to develop a sense of like this person's ASMR is starting to be activated, and that's a really good sign when you have somebody on the table. When you have that sense of like you're hearing something that's a bit like inspiring or inspired, or it's really just like capturing your like emotional engagement, and you get the like hairs go up on your arms, a little bit of a shiveriness, like that's all inside of the like ASMR.
I made an ASMR channel a little while ago that just overdubs mob movies. Classic mobs, really good fellas.
They make videos that are like online. You can look up like massage ASMR videos that are designed to, just by watching it, that you are like seeing sensations and like start like, right? It's a little bit hijacking. Yeah, it's interesting. Different people
I
respond
like that kind.
with different preferences.
I like the ones where they insult you. Barbershop and instructing to work part. Hopefully.
Okay, so we'll click into some of these other big concepts that we need to cover here. I'm gonna do a reflex first. Okay. So a reflex, you've seen this, you've had your doctor check for your reflexes, tapping your knee. If you kick like real fast, then that's just a really good place to measure whether your reflex system is pretty much within the range of normal. It's far and away not the only reflex. You have a bunch of really significant reflexes, some of which babies are born with that fade out over time. Probably seen some conversation of the moral reflex, which is like a baby's kind of full body anticipation of potentially like being dropped. And so if they get quite startled or are like moved through space in a downward motion rather abruptly, that like all their limbs will be like spider mode, right? Have you seen that before?
No,
Babies,
never heard of that.
see babies do that. That's pretty interesting. Um, we have the like in the knee, the reflex. We have, and they're generally like protective, right? And there's like pull your hand away from the stove, all this stuff. So it counts as a reflex because it doesn't even really have to hit the brain. That it's like in the low brain stem or the spinal cord. You've got signal goes off in the external environment. The nerve feeds it up into the central nervous system. And it's a reflex because right where it hits the central nervous system, the decision gets made and the motor response gets sent back out instead of it being loaded all the way up into the exactly the neocortex, the forebrain. So these are basically like G codes. Like they're like skip codes where we can like just get faster action, faster response timing. And so they're generally for things that are going to be a bit problematic for us. One that is great as body workers to be especially aware of is in the lateral neck, you've got a really significant artery that's the artery feeding the blood supply into the brain. So the body has some built-in defense mechanisms to really protect that. Of course, our like breath pathway, or trachea is going to also have some like protection. But the lateral neck, we've got quite a layer of muscles weaving around the lateral neck as well. These muscles will activate by reflex in response to basically like slow drip cortisol in addition to like reactive whatever. And so if you have a day with a bunch of like little got startled by something, somebody came around a corner, near car accident, you didn't notice the red light until the last second, you suddenly remembered that your boss gave you a phone call, like all these little like these are actually activating muscles in the neck to protect the flow of blood to the brain. And this is why people's shoulders are going to creep up towards their ears over the course of time. And so this is like a huge amount of what you'll do in the clinical settings, like is literally just dropping the shoulders back down away from the ears and reversing the effects of that reflexive behavior.
Is that the carotid artery?
Carotid artery. Exactly. So that's a reflex. Another really important key term is proprioception. Proprioception. This is our ability to know where our body is in space. Suddenly close your eyes.
Okay.
Are you lost? No. Can you tell if your left hand or your right hand is higher in space?
No, that's left.
Can you tell if your right knee or left knee is more bent?
Oh my god, my eyes are blinking
Yes.
like crazy. Like
I think so.
I'm so mad at keeping. I'm doing rapid eye movement right now. Oh gosh.
Can you tell if your spine is tilted in any direction? Okay, so proprioception, you can open your eyes. Proprioception is active all the time. When your eyes are open, you're usually not thinking about it that hard, and it's going to coordinate itself based on you seeing yourself. That your proprioception gets reaffirmed by your visual feed of what you look like in space. And so it stays pretty accurate for the most part. But we are able to pick up a huge amount of information through the central nervous system about where our body is in space. A lot of this is coming from nerve receptors through the skin, but also through the fascia and through the joint areas. We've got a lot of reception there, and of course the muscles have motor and neurological speeds that are still there.
I'm curious about something. You know when you're on an airplane and you can't see out the windows because they're closed, but you know you're going left, you know
Yes.
you're going right. I mean,
Yes.
how do you know that? How do you sense?
Yeah. So
place in
that
space.
specifically is actually a function in the inner ear. And it's super
Is it
freaking
part
cool.
of that? Part of your
Yeah,
central nervous
it's
system?
part of how your proprioception is keeping track of your positionality in space. And then of course the point of proprioception is to give your muscles instructions about how to stabilize you, right? And so like not only can you feel that the airplane is tilting, but you can brace your core in a way to not be floppy like a rag doll while you're getting tilted around. And that's like the full loop of it. So it's fun to catch, like why do I know this? What's happening inside of the ears, you actually have a bunch of like little kind of interrupted spaces. I wish I could draw the exact shape of it, but it doesn't matter that much conceptually. But there's actually like a bunch of like little crystals floating around in charged water, saline basically, and as these little crystals like brush against the receptor organs that are like generating static electricity and giving super, super fine detail information to a very small area of the inner ear about the positionality of your head and your body in relation to gravity. So they're floating in liquid so that they can get that like swirling action, but that they always have the gravitation of the earth as a reference.
And when you get dizzy, is it part of that?
Yeah, they're like
like when you get dizzy for no reason.
That can just be
Something's
destabilization. Yeah, people have a lot more vertigo when their electrolytes are imbalanced. And so the amount of static electricity available in this fluid is like not calibrated.
Right.
Yeah.
Cats probably have really good versions of this because they can sense when they're about to hit the ground.
Super.
Drop them down. So, wait, I'm confused by the whole electricity in the body.
Yeah.
Like literal
That is my
electrolytes.
next destination. Let's go there.
Okay.
Okay. So let's just quick review. Super, super basic from when you were like, I don't know, in second grade or fifth grade and you lit up a light bulb with battery and some wires, right? Okay. So we have a source of electricity which functions because it has a positive and a negative charge, right? And what we mean by a positive and a negative charge is basically like how much free electrons are popped off of the atoms going through this space, right? And so in a battery, you have an actual barrier where you're keeping a really low amount of electrons kind of suspended and then like really high density of electrons suspended on the other side. Okay. So electrons love to jump onto and bond to a atom if they can, but they're kind of particular and they whip around a little bit. Okay. So when you put a wire off of the positive charge that goes to the negative charge, the electrons are going to whip onto the atoms of the wire and they're going to basically like in a cascade effect whip around the circuit, close the circuit. They want to balance this out and a battery is dead when both sides are equal. Okay?
Oh, it's gotta move.
Yep.
Move.
Yeah. So it's not electricity if the wire isn't connecting it. It's just electrons. They're just bits and they're just in there. But because of the way that they want to move, they're going to whip around. When they have that connectivity, they're going to be really drawn to this negative space because that's where there's a lot of attachment places for them to jump onto on atoms that are empty. So if along the way you jump a bulb, then these electrons are going to ride up and they're going to go through the filament of the bulb and literally the friction of the electrons riding through that filament is going to release energy in the form of light. And then the electrons will jump back on and finish going around their way. And so slowly, gradually, this light bulb will use up some of the electrons that are making this pathway. Okay? So in the human body, we also have this central idea of a circuit, that there's a place where energy is stored or controlled, and there's a place where it's getting used to some degree somewhere. So just for my very favorite example is a nerve receptor called the Pacini receptor. Okay. I really like it because it kind of sounds like porcini, and it also kind of looks like a mushroom. And it's going to use up it's going to create a contact point. Okay, so let's go back to this just a second. What if you don't want that light bulb on all the time?
Yes, have a switch.
Yeah. So somewhere on here, you're going to create a mechanism that, depending on how you rock it, it either is touching both of these or it's not touching at least one of them. Then you cut the circuit, electrons cannot free flow. They will not leave the battery if they cannot go all the way around.
Okay.
They'll just stay there.
Mm-hmm.
And so they'll just be stuck. It doesn't matter where you put the switch, before or after the light bulb, irrelevant. Okay. So what we've got in the body is way up here, we've got a teeny tiny brain and central nervous system going on very, very, very vaguely. They're far away. We're zoomed in on our teeny vestibule down here. And you don't have to memorize that. This is just for example sake. Okay. So what the central nervous system wants to know about is how much vibration is happening in this very small patch of skin. BT dubs, we've got like 1 inch of skin, like a million receptors, specific skin receptors for all this different stuff. So lots of data is available. But this particular little guy is going to tell us about vibrations. And the brain, the central nervous system, wants to know about vibrations. So we've got an existing circuit. We've got a sensory nerve. And it is actually going to have to be able to make a full loop. In reality, they're going to be packeted. These two sides are packeted like really closely together. And so like it may look like a single thread of nerve once you pull it out, but it is a polarized circuit where the electrons, literal electrons, can flow one direction only. Up here, same thing. Like you're never going to have electrons just take out from the negative pole of the battery, right? Yeah, they have no motivation to do that in physics. So the electrons of the nervous system, which is highly active, highly electrical, is going to have this potentiality of the circuit. Down in this receptor, what's happening is sort of like a bell, sort of like a mushroom. When you get vibration, mechanically, the actual mechanics of the vibration is going to ding this like a bell. And that's the switch. So when it closes contact there, you get a sudden whip of electrons flowing all the way through the circuit, hits the central nervous system, the brain interprets it as environmental information. Yep. And every different type of sense has a different mechanical mechanism of how it figures out how to make a point of contact that is the switch that allows the circuit to close. And every time the circuit closes, the brain gets that information and it goes into that 40,000 bits that it's processing.
I'm sorry, I'm going backwards. When does the switch, what enables the switch to be switched to go on?
The vibration.
The vibration.
It's right. So just like if you ring a bell,
yeah,
then the pendulum of the bell is hitting the outside rim of the bell. That contact is making a vibration in the bell, right? But it's also caused by a vibration of moving the bell. And so in this case, we're taking kind of the reverse feedback where the pendulum of this bell is closing the circuit. So in the instant that this pendulum makes contact with the rim of the bell, electrons are jumping across here. Okay? And so here's where it actually is kind of lighting up. Right like that.
And the vibration is coming from outside, or is it coming from the nervous system?
Yeah, the vibration is just environmental, input.
Gotcha.
That you can tell that like you're in a car getting bounced around because of billions of these guys going off in a predictable way that the central nervous system can figure out.
Would the vibration ever come from within you to create a sensory
Yeah,
feeling?
definitely. And so that's a big part of what's going on with proprioception is our ability to pick up the information that's coming from inside of us as well. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Very.
Super interesting. Yeah, so we'll move towards wrapping up here a little bit. And we've got a little bit more structural information that we can cover. So you can not worry about that too much. We'll hit it back on Thursday and wrap up nervous system. But definitely keep up on that, the memorization stuff. We need the bones, we need the directional terms, like pretty much down pat pretty soon. And we can settle out into moments of just closing, processing, letting this sink into our awareness here. Okay. Just get comfortable. Let those waves go through. Kind of be aware of yourself as a system. Aware of the nervous systems. Just take a moment to kind of experience that pixelation in that we have so many tiny, tiny points of data feeding into our central awareness and getting interpreted into our experience. Just take a few moments with those points of data, noticing them individually. Thanking them. Oh, yeah. Just receiving that awareness and appreciating the way that it allows you to navigate your life. And put a little blessing on your nervous system. Send a little love all the way out to the skin, those receptors, back into the central nervous system. The automatic and automatic, voluntary, involuntary parts of yourself. As you breathe in, feel your sympathetic nervous system reaching for what you need from the outside world. As you breathe out, feel the parasympathetic system organizing what you already have within you, making it useful, slowing you down. Take a few breaths that way. Pulling in resources, getting. Breathing out, having. And clear that out with a sweet breath. Return to your skin. Return to the room. Thank you. Very good. It's one of my favorite parts. Thanks for enjoying it with me. Hey. How's it going?
I just received
Oh,
this in the mail, but
yeah.
the deadline is
Easy.
soon.
Yes.
I just wanted to say that speaking as a witch, magic. Are you a good witch? I'll let you get it.
Good answer.
That's the scariest thing you could have
Magic, paganism, earth magic, all that stuff. It's the only religion that can actually be proven by science.
Right. That has no argument with science. There's
Right.
no
It's
like.
all in alignment
Yeah.
with that.
Yeah. Exactly.
God, you woo as you want to be, right?
As woo if you want to be. Exactly. Exactly. And I know you guys have plenty of time to pursue all of the like very personal sides of your own spiritual experience outside of class. So with all the honor to that, I love to just make sure that we have a place to intersect it while we're like unpacking the kind of more science element, like in class. But with my clients, I spend a lot of time being like I don't care if you come in talking to me about chakras and elements and all this stuff, we will talk chakras and elements. And if people come in being like, I read this one research study, then we're going to talk science. And, I just want to translate across that barrier of like magic and science being really collaborative as much as possible.
For all of that.
Exactly. People need both sides.
Island.
Thank you. I'll show you this really quick just because Kumun Kai brought this to me. This is for the AMTA. There is a scholarship that goes towards massage school tuition. And aside from the scholarship and this entry form here, it is super good to go ahead and just get enrolled in AMTA on the front end. It is really the big professional organization that operates on a national level. It provides most of a really solid chunk of the professional insurance. So what happens when you fill this out is basically like you get enrolled with our professional board for on a national level. They do a lot of cool stuff, including a lot of the like legislative action. They're showing up in all the state legislative activities that could affect our profession and like trying to represent what we know from inside of our work into being like more broadly respected, acknowledged, better research in the like broader medical and scientific community. So that's really cool. And when you enroll while you're already a student, it's free for like the whole time that you're a student. And then there's like a pretty significant discount when you have to actually get insurance for the first time when you get your license, which is a requirement to hold the license. So you'll have to do it anyway. And it's a lot cheaper if you already had it for free as a student. So it's nice.
Oh, that's cool.
That's really.
Yeah.
I think they have like quizzes on their site too.
Yeah, they have lots of great resources and a lot of like they're super on top of just like creating resources, making it easier for you to have stuff to share with your clients and all that. So yes, it's very
competitive. Yeah.
very limited. But yeah, definitely just getting registered in there, whether or not you are in suspense about the money.
No, I was not invested at all until about a minute ago.
Fine. So worried about competition.
It doesn't feel like a competition. A 2-sentence essay. I guess that counts now that we're like Twitter is basically the whatever Instagram essays.
Right. Oh, you mean Elon Musk's Twitter? X. In 2 sentences.